What I've done today is build a tool for you guys that hopefully should be simple for no matter what your level of Excel experience is, you guys can use. I'm going to jump right into it and start to explain it, but I'm going to switch over to the screen now. We're going to try to keep this nice, light, and condensed. So we're going to just go right from the top. So this spreadsheet here, and I'm going to zoom in for you guys can see better. You highlight everything in the upper left-hand corner, you can double click and it'll resize everything. So the way I've done this, so here's the kind of walkthrough. So we got a BTC price, and that's essentially from April 28th of 2013 all the way up to current. And essentially that's the open price of the market open, and then what the close was. So open in the morning, closed in the evening, and then what the high and low of the day were. This is the BTC pricing. And just highlight that and do some updating, editing here. ETH's the same way. The difference here is I added the Satoshi value that corresponds with the high and low pricing here. So we can come over here, just put the pricing there. So this is the Satoshi value. So currently July 15th, we're on July 16th today. So that won't post until tomorrow. And then I got RVN here. We're not going to be using this right now. We'll pull that off to the side. Then we have the outputs, which is all pre-calculated. I'll get into that in a second. Then we have the Ethereum difficulty. So this is by day. This is the rolling difficulty every day. And this is just a snapshot in time. And then you have your hash rate. So the hash rate is just the total hash rate. And that's just really to show the correspondence. You could calculate difficulty and hash rate. We haven't done that in the tool yet. I just wanted to make sure I had it in there for future. We could put other cryptocurrencies in there. We would need the difficulty and their hash rates, and then we'd need their pricing table to be able to do what I've done here. Now in this table here, so the output here, we'll just change this color of this tab to like a green. That way we can distinguish it. Now power rates up here, all the yellow boxes you can change. The point of this is to make sure you can change your power rate. Let's do 0.8. It's effective what I'm paying right now at the house here, and you can see the power per cost per rig was here. Now I took a particular date here, this date that I started with, and you're going to see the power of a spreadsheet like this. So this was a date, I put a video out this day on 3/14/2016. It was on a mining rig. I did a 6-card R9 380X rig that had 123 mega hash output. Used about 1,320 watts of power, so it was using a lot of power. That was costing me about $2.53 a day. The rate that was coming out of that rig per day, if the difficulty stayed roughly the same that day, was about 2.5 ETH per day on that rig. Now mind you, the net price at that time on that day, and the price that I'm pulling, you can see here is column 4. I was purposely pulling the low. The column 4 for me here on this is the low for the day. Now we could just say what the close was. If I wanted to change that, where I would just switch right up here to column 5, so we can trace that back. Now that's going to change it to 12.45 for the day was the close price on that particular day. I chose for this analysis just to look at the worst case scenario on that day of what the output was. Let's just go ahead and put column 4 again, which again is the low, because column 1, 2, well, it goes from here, it counts from here, so it looks up the day. 1, 2, yeah, that's 3, 4, and then 5 would be the fifth. You can see 5C in the upper right hand corner of where my mouse is at right there. You can see that that's the 5th column, so that's where it's pulling that information, just to give you an understanding. The low of that day was $11.58 for that particular day. Now what this allows you to do is you can figure out this particular rig cost about $2,384 to build. What I can do here is I can highlight all of these. I can copy it. I can go down and let's just do 100 days. Let's check 100 days. So let's go down to and we're going to paste this entire line. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to just change this first date. We're going to change this to 15, and then what I'm going to do is highlight these two right here, and then I'm going to double click this little green thing right here. And what that's going to do is it's going to shift, because it knows that, hey, I'm just doing every day. So now that's going to go through and it pre-calcs everything from that. So your power cost is relatively the same, because essentially that, and this is considered running 100%. We're going to do some averaging here to say, you know, overall the total, let's just say the uptime on this rig was 60%. We can do the math from the 60%, and we can see the ROIs here on those particular times, you know, of what the output is. Now we can do something current here, and we will. I see some of the comments here. We we're going to bring in something current, but I'm giving you guys an understanding of where things were at in 16 compared to now, and then we can do the algebra to figure out what does the price have to go to based on the rate of difficulty increase of what they would have to go to now. You know, realistically, you know, with an inflation of price, you know, if speculation goes crazy and we were talking, you know, pricing around, you know, exponential growth like before, what would it have to go to? We can start doing the algebra to see, you know, how crazy does that sound? I mean, a $300 Ethereum sounded crazy when it was 11, so, you know, things have happened before. Not saying that they will, but this is a good analysis to figure out where things we're at. So obviously the hash rate didn't, you know, those are fixed hash rates, those are fixed power output, and then you have two other factors here that run into this calculation here. So if we look at the ETH earned rate, so we have the ETH earned rate around output of the rig times C5, which is the ETH reward, divided by the ETH difficulty rate, and then this factor in here, this times right here, is the fees that you would pay. You have to put some kind of level of fee in there. I put 3% because you have about 1.5% on like the pool you're using if you have a pool cost, and then like an exchange rate, you know, you can sum those fees in there, and then it takes the time between because you have to do the calculation of the block time. So you can do the math against block time. So you have your relative rate here. If you typed in these figures here, the 123 million with this difficulty, this power rate, with your output, you would get this roughly, it depends on the calculator. Some of them take orphan cost in there, but you're going to get around that 2.5 with that difficulty rate on just like a web calculator. That gives you the base math that's going on here. Let's do the summation of this, and then we'll come up to like a current thing, and you'll see the impact of like what dropping the block amount has done to your profitability, which we all know has went down quite a bit. We do a sum on this, and let's just say if this was, we're going to do some division on here of like, let's say the rig wasn't up 100% because we know that's not reality. So in those 100 days, it would cost you $255 to run this rig. You would have accumulated over this time period this much Ethereum. We'll do this one, and then we'll do one that's current too. So 168 Ethereum, and then we can just do some quick calculations here. Equals this times this, and there you're at 2,200. So you were in 100 days, and you saw your average was supposed to be in the beginning. If you were to calculate this rig on this day to build it, it said ROI is about 87 days. Well, if this was the cost right here, you still had your output minus your power, because we did not take that into effect. So that's roughly if you were able to get 100% nonstop, you turned off the rig. And that is a pretty real figure, because the way we've done this is we've calculated the ETH difficulty rate per day, and you can see the relative change of Ethereum that you actually got over that period of time. This is where this tool is superior to like doing just the calculation and averaging it, because you're getting it every day. You're figuring out what your output is. I can fix the header for the people that are emo about it. Here, let's do this. If I lock this header, it's view, freeze panes. So we've locked the header. If I come back up here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this, and you guys can play around with this. That's why I gave you guys this tool. Here, let's do it this way. Let's delete some of these, and what we're going to look at is we're going to model something current. So we're going to come in here at GTX, and that output would be roughly 35 mega hash per card, 8 times 35 million hash. Let's do number, use decimals, there we go. It's 280 million hashes for that rig, about 105 per card, times 8, plus about, say 85 for the overhead. It's about 925. And here we're going to copy this whole line. We're going to paste it because I need all the formulas. So then we're going to go in and just update this 280 and then 925. My calculations are correct. Here's the delta. That's what you would be earning if Ethereum never changed the reward from 5 to 2. It's 35 on a 1070 realistic. We can do a little adjustment on it. I do have one 1070 rig here that's an 8-card rig, and it gets 256. So you can see you do have to go in there and change, because I did not build a schedule of when the reward reductions occurred. Let's say you're even able to get a good deal on those cards. Let's say you're able to get them for 175 each, which is really good for a 1070 times 8. And that 450 includes your risers and all that, because everything's a good deal. So let's say at the best case you're able to get that for 1,800 bucks. You're still looking at a 1,400 day 16. We'll come back to a current one too. I just want to get it right on this. 3, 17, 16, and then if you highlight these two, double click, it'll go through and adjust everything. ETH reward then was 5, not 2. Paste. And really there were no 8 card rigs back then because Windows was not playing very well. Let's say R9, 390s. History is very important. Like if you guys, I understand some people are like, I don't care what happened then, I want to know now. But I'm telling you, it'll get there. 181, and that was about, it was actually about 1440 watts there. Let's be real. What that does for us here, when I go to chart this, is you'll see, so now if I go through and look at the ETH rate, so you can highlight one range that you want, and then you can chart that. So insert, and then you can go in there and edit the rest of your stuff. That's fine. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come in here, we're going to select data, we're going to choose to edit this range to be dates, which just does it on the bottom here. And then on this side, we're going to add in, and this is price, and the values of that is under here. There we go. So what you can see here is as we started getting less and less ETH, and you had like a price spike and then a relative here. So what you can see, and you can start recognizing some patterns on some of this stuff. I mean, it's kind of stuff that you ended up seeing, but you can start looking at predicated on your particular rig, I think is valuable and something that you should do. You know, and I'm just trying to show you guys some basic how to use, you know, I mean, this is Excel, but we can do it in a Google Sheet, and it gives you guys some, you know, basic stuff. Now, let me go through some cleansing. Ethereum, hash rate, history. There's a few different sites out here, but BitInfoChart is one of the better ones out here. So if you can go here, and like, let's look at the hash rate stuff here. If you come to a site like this, and you see where there's static information, so you see in the upper left-hand corner here, you have static information that's coming on this. Now that's loaded with the page, right? And the chart's just displaying that information when you put your mouse over. Now you guys can go through and you can go to view page source, and you see all this just blah, 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 HTML text, right? Well, what you're looking for is the data. So we come just below this, we're gonna get to the data that's there. And all this data right here is the data that is part of that. Now the data we care about starts somewhere up here, right? So you come right up here and it starts right there. You can see the document get file name by ID, container, and then there's a comma, and then right up here is where you're gonna highlight that. So you can highlight all that data, right? Keep going, keep going, keep going, lots of data. Okay, we're gonna come all the way back down here, and we're gonna get it to right here. That's where it ends, okay? And we're gonna copy that. So Control C copies it. Now from there, you can go in, you have to cleanse it. So the cleansing process allows you to get it into somewhere. Now there's multiple ways to do this, so just bear with me on one of the real quick, easy ways if you're doing it manually. If you don't got time to write a Python script or something fancy, and no, you cannot just bring it in and go comma delimited. It doesn't know where the space breaks are and stuff. So it's not as easy as pasting it in into Excel using the tool. You actually have to bring it into here, okay? You paste it in, and once that's pasted into Notepad, you're going to do a few things. This is what we call data cleansing. So you can go into replace, and all we're going to do is we're going to just replace things, okay? So we're going to say, I don't want brackets this way, replace all. It's going to remove them. I don't want the thing that says new date on everything, replace all. That just removed all that. I don't want the parenthesis, remove that. I don't want the other way. We're going to replace all on that. I don't want the quotes. It's going to get rid of all those. And then I do not want the other bracket the other way. And I'm going to replace all that. Now this data is cleansed. Okay? So what that lets me do, we're going to save this data.txt on the desktop. Okay? And then we're going to come into Excel here. We're going to add a new little sheet here. And then we're going to go to data. We're going to import from text. We're going to go to the desktop. We're going to hit this data sheet here. We're going to come up, and then it's going to bring up like an import wizard. Okay. So we're going to say, yep, that's fine. It's comma delimited. It knows that it was comma delimited. delimited. We're going to hit load. It doesn't know the page breaks though. So what I'm doing, so now I just did that part, right? And then what I'm going to do here is say that's cool and all, but this is the only I want. And I want to copy that. And I'm going to come into the other sheet that I created here, and I'm going to paste this as a transpose, which is going to flip it for me. So if you go to paste special, transpose, now it's flipped it for us. Okay, it's going this way. Now we know it's a date and then the amount, and that's particular thing I think is the hash rate. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to say, you know what, a quick and easy way is I can go through here and filter. And yes, there's VBA scripts and stuff I can write to do this, but this is far faster. So I'm going to say filter. And then what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to highlight that filter there. I'm going to hit data, filter. I hit this drop down. Look what Excel does for me. It now has separated all the dates for me and then all the other information, right? So I'm just going to uncheck the dates first because I know everything else underneath that is the regular data that I need, which is the actual hash rates there. I'm going to highlight that. I got them. I can go through, just scroll down, highlight all this information, copy it, go into another quick sheet, paste. That's all the first information I need, which is the rate. I can go back into that sheet that I was just in, filter, uncheck all, and then just check the dates, which are all the dates. Have this information here. Come down, give me all that, and mind you, it puts it in order because it copied it in order. Copy that. Paste that in a new sheet. Just for I won't forget it. Dates. And now this is my new fresh data. So I can copy in my dates into that new sheet right here. Paste. Go into my rate. Copy my rates. Copy. And then paste that into that new sheet right here. Paste. And now I got all my data and all my rates now in a column. Now in this you'd have to format this and tell it that it's a number with no decimal places, which then fix all your rates there. And then this can be just your normal date calculation. And now you got all that information. We have cleansed it from this information. I could have pulled it into Access, I could have pulled it into SQL, I could have done, you know, if I'm going to do a repeat process, I'm going to want to automate that. But that gives us the ability to now have web data scraped, and it doesn't matter what it is. Like, this could be this is that way. Anybody that's embedding all that information into the web, you know, as part of their HTML. This is an older site, so they actually still have it on the HTML. Some other sites actually will have it in, like, it'll be as part of like a JavaScript file, and you would have to go into, essentially, you could go into inspect, which then brings up this cool screen that sometimes you probably hit and accidentally bring up and are wondering what the hell it is. But you can come in here and you can do this. So like if you go over to network here and you hit refresh on this page, you're going to see everything that gets loaded on that page. You're going to see how long it took, and you're going to see all the different elements that now come from that web page. And then you can start inspecting this information to figure out kind of where the data is at. So if it's sorted in one of the JavaScript files, if it has a local like node.js file that it's storing information in, you could start to kind of peel back, you know, like, hey, what's in here? And, you know, and see if that data is stuck inside, you know, the data set here. But I find it critical, you got to understand, if you don't understand the manual way to do it, and you just go for the programmatic way, you sometimes can miss stuff. So it's good to go through the manual steps first. I always usually, most of the time, try to go through the manual way of doing things first to make sure I have all the steps in order that I need. Can do more of this kind of stuff to show you guys how to get the information. Because right now is a time of critical where you're like, you have rigs, you have sunk cost, you have money spent, you know what your rates are, and you're trying to do the math to figure out, does this make sense for me? You know, what's my output? What's my vision? From those kind of spreadsheets, you can start to calculate, like, I'm going to pay for power, I'm going to run it for 15 days, what's my rate of return? And then you can kind of start keeping track of, like, here's what it says I'm going to get, here's what I'm actually getting. Here's what's in my wallet on, my Ledger X, my local phone wallet, whatever, however you're getting paid, you can actually see what the output is, and then you can capture those fees that you're getting from like the exchanges. If you're using any of the other tools, something like CUDA Miner or one of the other ones that take an additional fee out, you can start to calculate, here's what I should be getting paid. Because really, at the end of the day, the math that is going on in the background when you're submitting hashes to something, a lot of it's forecasted, right? But you know what your output of your machine is. The hash is a calculation based on the share count. The share count is how you're getting the math of what your contribution to the pool is, and then how they're paying you appropriately. So if there's a huge gap, I call that kind of the float that occurs, where if you're at 280 mega hash and the pool is saying that you're at 280, that's good and all, but what's your actual output based on the calculations of what you should be getting paid? And if there's you can have a margin of error to 3 to 5%, but if you're running like a 10 to 12% margin of error, you might want to look at a different pool. You got to be able to take a little bit of time. I know everybody wants that thing that you just plug in and it just pays out, but you got to put in the time. And if you've made the investment, if you've spent thousands of dollars on something, you got to look at what makes sense, and you got to target those networks to make sure that it makes sense for you. I mean, there's one thing about supporting a network and all that, but at the end of the day, you still need to make sure that you're covering what you can with it, or you're keeping track of it to a point that you can be able to know when to come back in or take a chance and have some level of risk into maybe another project that you start researching, saying, hey, this might take off.